Hey guys, what's up? It's Matt with 86, and this is ADATA's XPG Storm SSD cooler. Now, it's an M.2 form factor SSD cooler, whether you're a SATA 6 SSD or your NVMe SSD. It's really kind of, let's touch on that real quick, because it's really kind of a gimmicky look at how can you add a little something extra and not spend that much money. Maybe something that adds a little bit of protection while facing the truth that it's kind of unnecessary. And albeit a little bit unnecessary, it is kind of cool. Now, I do think it needs some polish and a little more work to go with it before it's actually kind of perfect. But it's pretty close, it's pretty neat, and let's cover some of that right now. Now, at the end of this video, I will include some heat tests so that you can see some differences between unprotected and protected with this heat sink, but primarily the goal of looking at this is for the same reason you need RGB on a RAM. You really don't. It's for something different. Or when you use something like RAM fans. RAM fans don't really give you much performance increase, if any at all, but they look different, and it's a way to set yourself apart and make your build look a little bit different. That's exactly what I find this to be, and we're just going to kind of go over what that entails. Now, there are a few things to know about this before you get started. If your SSD slot is somewhere and only somewhere located like behind your PCI lane, then it's going to be covered up by your GPU. And if it's covered up by your GPU, you're not self-serving because you're not going to be able to see it. And on top of that, there's going to be a clearance issue because it's too tall to fit behind there. Now, if you have an SSD slot that's somewhere located above or below where you can put it nice and discreet and out of the way, then that will work best for you. That cat knows how to open doors. Out of the box, it comes with some stock lighting features. And by some stock lighting features, I mean one stock lighting feature. It's Cycle Breathe. You have no ability to disable this light unless you just don't plug it in at all. So aside from Cycle Breathe, though, it has some other cool functions that will kind of let it tie in with things like MSI Mystic or Gigabyte Fusion or AuraSync from ASUS or even ASRock's RGB. Lacking some support for other features, things I'd like to see integrated are like iCUE, of course. But Corsair has some of the most complex lighting features. I don't see that being a possibility with a lot of these other companies meshing together. They are extremely intricate with their lighting. Now, it does come with a 12 volt and RGB 4-pin RGB connector to put onto the header of the motherboard or attach it wherever you're hiding your RGB inside of your tower so that you can connect it and use things like Fusion or Ambient LED in order to tie the light together. There are some notable problems with it though, because there's definitely hot spotting. Hot spotting is obnoxious and atrocious, and I wish a company, especially a company like ADATA, would have looked at this before putting something like that out. The hot spotting makes it kind of unappealing to look at when you're watching it go. It's just sort of, you see two notable LEDs and they're illuminating it, and it should be diffused and pretty, but it's kind of ugly. It's maybe just not quite there yet. Now, it does come with a cable for Molex. If you're somebody that's just that obnoxious person that has to still use Molex for some god unknown reason, then you do have Molex. And at Molex, you're going to get the 12 volt fan speed. You don't get the ability to adjust it, but you do have that option there. It will power both the LEDs for Cycle Breathe, and it'll power the fan inside of it. The fan is a little bit loud, so let's pause here. I'll let you listen to it. And I noticed this when I'm sitting next to the tower, is at first I didn't think I was going to notice it, but I can definitely hear it when it's cranked to 12 volts. We'll go over that in just a second. Here, take a listen. Now, something you can do too is also go into a hub or the motherboard pin header, and if you want to kind of bring that noise down some, you can adjust it between 10.5 volts to 12 volts, and if you put it down to that 10.5 volt range, then you're going to get something hopefully a little quieter, or at least that's the idea. However, if you go Molex, there's no controlling that. I do wish it came in more colors than just black. Unfortunately, this only comes in black, at least that I could find. I would have preferred a white one. That would have been kind of cool, and maybe something with some better LEDs inside so you could hit that full range. I did notice when I was trying to pair it with Gigabyte Fusion that I was having issues with pinks and purples, where the motherboard would detect one color, it detected another. So while it cycles through, it gets off on a different color for a little bit, and that's somewhat irritating, I guess, because you would sort of hope if it's compatible, it would just sort of mesh together and all the colors would be uniform across it. Unfortunately, on a handful of colors, it is not. Installing it is really simple. So this was pretty cake, and it says it's toolless. It absolutely is, minus the fact you need a screwdriver to screw it into the motherboard, so maybe not completely toolless, obviously, but anyways, you simply remove the protection for the adhesive thermal tape on the back, then just place the SSD inside of there. Then you connect the SSD as normal and use one of the screws that they gave you that has a little bit extra length, as that goes a long ways, into installing it into the motherboard. Very simple, very easy to do. I do recommend maybe putting those cables in there first and then putting it in so that you've already got them routed, and all you got to do is plug them in rather than plugging them in and then trying to install it, if that makes sense. Cable managing it is really simple. The cables are nice, small, and discreet. Unfortunately, they have white headers for some reason. Thanks, ADATA, because you make a nice, beautiful, out-of-the-way cable, but you put little white headers in there and they can be seen. So stock out of the box, can you turn it off? No. you can't. It just comes with cycle breathe mode on. I mean, I guess you could open it up and remove the LEDs, but that's kind of counterproductive to what it is. However, if you control it via an app on your motherboard, whether it's RGB Fusion or something of that nature, you can go in there and set that to off and it will tell it not to light up. So really, what is this thing? It's just a $28 addition for your computer that makes it look a little different. And again, I kind of go back to RAM fans. Think that. RAM fans don't really do anything other than give you a different aesthetic appeal. And while this could probably offer you some protection for an NVMe or M.2 SATA 6 drive, the honest truth about it is they can take a thermal beating anyways, and a lot of people will probably be like, yeah dude, it's gonna be like awesome performance enhancement for my SSD, and I'll just be like, okay cool, sure, whatever you say. Yes, some of them get kind of hot under load, yes you want to protect them, but yes, they are designed to take those thermals, so ultimately you should be okay. Now it could in theory expand the life of it by protecting it and keeping it somewhat cool. However, that's up to you to decide if you wanted something like this. There are some other performance ones that have simple heat sinks and fan assemblies on them. This one is just a neat one by ADATA XPG's brand in order to bring you some RGB cohesion throughout your system if that's something you're interested in. To me, at the end of the day, I think that it's a pretty cool little addition. It needs a little bit of polish, get rid of some of that hot spotting, and we're about to close out this video with just looking at the thermal differences between an unprotected one and a protected one using my nifty little heat gun. Enjoy that, and you guys have a great day, night, whatever it is. I'll see you in the next video that I do. Ambient temperature of the tower is 26.8 degrees Celsius. The SSD without the heatsink attached to it is 30.7 degrees Celsius. The SSD with the heatsink attached to it is 29.0 degrees Celsius. So there is a little bit of an improvement there, but it's not something that's probably big enough to make or break your decision on this as far as performance enhancement goes. Again guys, thanks for watching. Have a great day, night, whatever it is. Don't forget to get subscribed. I'll see you guys in the next video that I do, which should be about some other pretty cool, pretty cheap stuff to hopefully look at. Some of you have already seen some of it on Twitter, and I'll see you guys in the next video I do.